we would follow the example of Sweden, where parents choose schools instead of schools choosing parents. Sweden has driven up standards in all of its schools by making one crucial change. Any parent can take the money that the government currently spends on their child's education and take that money to the school that they want.
The honourable member opposite is keen to be introduced to the Swedish model, but unfortunately not something I can arrange today. Will he tell us about the billions of pounds in cuts which the Swedish model would mean? Will he tell us that there will be surplus school places springing up everywhere, not where they're needed, but where some have the loudest voices? And will he tell us that instead of local accountability, there'll be a lottery for parents and a hugely centralised bureaucracy? No, Mr. Speaker, he won't tell us any of those.
What I perceive the Conservative policy to be in danger of doing is introducing so much variety into the system that the system is much more polarised between the best and the worst.
Enthusiasm for the Swedish education system is fashionable in the UK. This programme explores the contentious Swedish supply-side model, where the state funds a free market of independent schools, and asks whether adopting its principles can ever hope to work in our own country.
The first politician actually to look to Sweden as a way of improving education in the United Kingdom was Tony Blair. When he introduced his education white paper, one of the great successes was the establishment of the Academies programme. And we wanted to ensure that the sorts of organisations that have subsequently come into state education and provided an alternative, a better and independent way of doing things, are given the opportunity to expand. The barriers, which are currently putting them off, too much bureaucracy, problems with planning, central government direction, these are things that we want to remove in order to ensure that we have as many people as possible collaborating in driving up standards.
Sweden is a social democratic country with a strong welfare state, high levels of taxation and low ethnic diversity. At the heart of its education system is choice for parents. As valued consumers, they can effectively shop around, with the right to choose from a variety of schools in their local area. Angelika Bergner is a parent, and as a teacher as well, she understands the workings of this system from both sides.
Ja, man kan få välja alltså vilken skola man själv vill sätta sina barn. Alltså, man kan välja i stort sett överallt, beroende på. Man måste bara se till att de kommer dit och därifrån själv.
The education marketplace has been expanded to offer parents a range of different types of schools with widely differing pedagogies within the state system. And as the engine of choice, every child's schooling carries a price tag known as a voucher, which parents can spend wherever they like. In the early 1990s, schools were transferred from state to local municipal control, and independent education providers were permitted to operate within the state system. They are known as free schools, and currently some 9% of Sweden's school-aged children pass through their doors. These alternative providers are argued to have liberated the state education system, driving up standards across the board and sparking what the British Conservatives call the supply-side revolution.
A free school could be run by me, for instance. I could apply and say, I'm going to start this and this school with this and this profile, but I'm going to follow the national curriculum, the Swedish school law and other decrees. Or I could be a company, I could be an organization.
But on the other hand, you also have groups where it's very clear that it's the parents who are wanting to create a good environment in schools for their own children. And in between you have a lot of other people who are, well, they are, for instance, they can have been having a long career as teachers in the municipality schools, and then they think that by starting an independent schools, they will at last have the opportunity to put their ideas to work.
This is precisely the case at a little school outside Stockholm in the suburban district of Nacka, where the school was opened by a teacher who wanted a better education for her children.
I was a teacher, teaching Swedish and German in the secondary school, and I was very frustrated about the way the school worked. There was very little cooperation between the teachers. Everyone, you went into a classroom, you had 40 minutes to teach the children. It took 10 minutes before everyone was settled, and you made your 40 minutes, and then bye-bye, and you went into the next classroom, you met the next children, and to me it was, I felt it was, no, this is not the way of teaching or learning, I thought.
Är ni mörtar eller är ni abborrar? Abborrar. Med de där stickiga orangea små fenorna på ryggen.
Och eftersom jag själv som lärare och pedagog så jag känner att jag vill förändra det här, annars orkar jag inte jobba i skolan längre. Det var viktigt att se, går det att åstadkomma en sån här skola? Går det att bygga upp någonting där det verkligen, man kan arbeta på ett annat sätt?
Plats. Då börjar smårivandet. Riva. Så sätter man den på något sätt som man tänker att det blir nog bra.
A wide range of pedagogies accompanied the arrival of different providers, and Suzanne's school is no exception.
Alltså vår idé med skolan, det var verkligen att ge större utrymme åt skapande i skolan. Alltså bildskapande, musik, att få fantasin, att lusten skulle vara en bärande princip.
Så att, och de här har alltid 2 romsäckar, abborren har alltid en.
The school is now oversubscribed, and they are having to turn applicants away to be picked up by the local municipal schools or other free schools in the area. But they started with only 16 pupils, and it was an uphill struggle to sell the school's alternative ideas to parents in the first place.
The politicians had made the decision, and now it should be possible to do this. But no one knew. Well, I mean, because there were many questions. Well, what shall we do with this, and is this possible? And no one knew the answer. So it was like a little bit of trial and error in the beginning. När vi började första året, jag hade ingen betalning. När sen 5 barn försvann så blev det naturligtvis ekonomiskt väldigt, väldigt tufft. Men det innebar att vi var tvungna att dra ner i personalstyrkan. Och det blev väldigt turbulent under den terminen. Men sen efter det så har vi inte haft några sådana stora konflikter eller så att vi lärde oss väldigt mycket av den första konflikten.
Though trickier than in Sweden, current legislation in the UK does allow a range of organisations and groups to set up state schools, including parents. So far, only one secondary school has been opened with parents at the forefront in the UK, and this could only happen with unprecedented support from local government and extreme energy on the part of a group of parents in the London Borough of Lambeth.
Before we even got together, there had been years and years and years of inadequate provision for local kids. So children around here who hit 11 were then getting on buses and trains and travelling for hours to go to schools that nobody else wanted their kids to go to.
It's almost as if we were turning our children into commuters. You know, I mean, that's what it felt like, you know, and, you know, it's kind of, it wasn't a lesson that we felt that our children needed to learn at the age of 11.
So there had been a lot of community concern, muttering in the playgrounds, lots of people banging on the doors of their local councillors. And it's to Lambeth's credit that Lambeth discovered this piece of legislation that said it would be possible to set up a new school with parents as the kind of driving force.
Having come together in 2003, the group finally managed to establish the Elm Green School, and they now sit on the school board as parent governors.
I think if other parent groups want to do this, I would encourage them absolutely. I think that the result that we're creating is fantastic. A group of parents coming together like this can utterly transform their community.
Yes.
You know, I mean, this school will be there for another 100 years, whatever it is. I mean, that is hundreds of thousands of children who will benefit from what we've done.
Yeah.
A new building is currently under construction, and it's due to open its doors in the autumn of 2009.
I have been contacted by several people quite a lot of people who've wanted to follow our example. But the problem that I keep finding is that lack of a site is very, very hard, particularly in London. You know, to find a site that's big enough to accommodate a secondary school is very, very hard. So it's a long haul, but it is absolutely the most worthwhile thing I've ever done.
Back in Sweden, the number of schools has risen because of this supply-side model. Independent companies are leading the way at secondary level, funded by vouchers and operating at a profit. But how does this give choice to the parents in the area? At this school, the curriculum is entirely different from others around. Students substitute lesson time for cafe time. Pupils choose their own timetable, and it feels more like a university. It's called Kunskapsskolan, or Knowledge School. It's non-selective, and parents pay with their vouchers. It's part of a chain of over 30 schools with almost 10,000 pupils spread across the country. And it's the largest independent education provider in Sweden.
Vad hette det här nu då? Runt om här?
Farfar har ätit en sån.
Ja, jag ska tala om för dig, i Turkiet så äter de det här. Det är en delikatess. Jag håller inte på att bråka med varandra.
In the town of Nyköping, head teacher Marcus Brunberg takes us on a tour to explain how his school differs from others in Sweden.
This is the cafeteria and the place where the students eat their school lunch, but it's also a place for the students to work during the whole day. It's also the place where the teachers come to have their coffee during the day. So they interact with the students during the whole day. The space and the open areas, I think, and I see it as a training for the student as well, for the future, because when they come to an office landscape to work, they have to learn how to focus and concentrate during the day, even though someone else is doing stuff on the side.
The emphasis is placed squarely on individualised learning in a range of different learning zones, from quiet booths and open areas to classrooms with panes of glass for walls. Students can consult teachers whenever they need their help, advice or guidance. But they are encouraged to make use of their unique logbook to manage their own time and concentrate on the work that interests them on any given day.
You get to work really independently, and there's you don't have a schedule that you have to follow. You have a plan instead of for each month and week, and then by that you decide what you want to do for the day to get them done.
My parents wanted me to go here because they felt like it's a great school for those who feel like they want to prepare for later in life, and I feel like I'm more motivated here.
But even in Sweden, there are arguments for saying that by going for this type of education for their children, parents may not always be making the right choices.
Om man ska fixa Kunskapsskolan så måste man nog vara en ganska så stark elev. Och alltså man måste liksom förstå att man måste lägga ner ganska mycket arbete. Sen å andra sidan kanske det kan motivera flera elever som vi i den kommunala skolan kanske inte alltid kan motivera, för att man kan få välja ett eget sätt att nå målet på ett annat sätt. Alltså, så att men jag tror att man måste vara en ganska så ansvarstagande elev helt enkelt.
Kunskapsskolan has been operating in Sweden since 2000. But plans are now afoot to take their teaching model to other countries. This time, the leafy London suburb of Richmond is the target of their business expansion.
So we're planning to open 5 academies here in the UK, based around the pedagogic approach we have in Sweden, so the personalised education model, but fitted to an English national curriculum and working within the academy's programme.
Some local parents are sceptical about the plans for expansion.
The first we heard about the proposals to make Whitton and Hampton Community College, HCC, academies was splashed across the front page of the local paper, and it came as a bit of a shock for the parents of HCC, because from Dr. Demont taking over, the school has really thrived. It's really become everything it should be.
And parent and businessman Kevin Rice is worried about their credentials.
The situation with Kunskapsskolan is that they have never taught in England. They've no experience of the GCSE system. The Swedish system will require major changes to the way the school runs. The children will adopt new systems of learning and very much based on self-motivation. They have a system called personalised learning, and the question must be whether children from the age of 11 upwards can actually produce the necessary application to make that work.
My thinking is, at the moment, it's a bit like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Kids are going to go in, stuff's going to go on like Oompa Loompas, we're not going to know what's going to happen, and then they're going to come out the other end, and by then, whatever the result is, it's too late to do anything about it.
In the Stockholm suburb of Nacka, John Baumber heads Kunskapsskolan's Specialist Science College. As a former English head, they're using his experience to find ways of bringing Swedish curriculum ideas to Richmond.
If I look at the two different models now, I can see what we're proposing looks like a Kunskapsskola but hits all the targets within the UK system. The stage we've reached is that we've been and looked at every bit of good practice we can find in every aspect of British education, because there's much in England which is better than Sweden. You know, there's been a huge pedagogical movement and investment in the UK that we want to draw on.
Our idea is not to have a kind of flat pack school that we bring from Sweden to England and put together here. It's about bringing the best ideas from Sweden and combining those with the excellent practice that's already here to create a new model for England.
But the free school system in Sweden rests on parental choice driven by an oversupply of places. And Jane Witham is concerned that this element of choice will not be accompanying Kunskapsskolan to the UK.
The nearest school to HCC is Whitton, and that's going to be an academy as well. When you live on the edge of a borough, you don't really have much choice as to where your child goes to school. It's basically decided for you, unless you find religion, go out of the borough, go private. You know, to go to your local comprehensive, you don't have much of a choice.
Kunskapsskolan, förutom inlärning, och för att
Yes, if you want the Swedish education, go for it. Put your child in the Swedish education. Why they don't find a plot of land, build a school and start from scratch and have everything they want, you know, that would be a much better idea. And then you could send your child there if that's what you wanted.
Back in Sweden, Kunskapsskolan is just one of many different types of free schools that exist in the state sector. But there is a cost attached to this level of choice. The local municipal schools are obliged to offer a place to every student in case parents choose to withdraw them from a free school, thereby creating the crucial element of oversupply in Swedish schools, which some argue is a waste of resources.
So you can start right away.
It says content. The content is what the text is about.
The argued benefit is that the existence of free schools stimulates competition across the board, which is supposed to help raise the quality of education for all.
I think the success of free schools has given us a bit more pressure because, well, even if we don't want it, I think there is a sort of competition and we can see pupils as clients. So at the end of the day, when we don't have any pupils, we teachers don't have a job either. So we have to think of the pupils' interest the whole time.
Vi behöver konkurrens, vi behöver någon som ifrågasätter lite grann vad håller ni på med och vad gör ni, vad händer med pengarna?
I think personally that the existence of free school has made us working in public school to improve all the time. And here in Nyköping, we have decided that we are going to develop our schools to be known as being the best public schools in all of Sweden.
And the same applies back in Nacka, where it appears that the policy of allowing parents to choose free schools has led the other local schools to thrive.
I know that the local school is really aware that we are here and is playing a much stronger game with parents and thinking about their system and what they're trying to achieve, and inevitably therefore raising the quality and outcomes of every particular school in the area.
Crucially, the business model of some free schools such as Kunskapsskolan rests on the fact that they are allowed to make profits within the state system.
Of course we are doing profit as every company do, but it's not that I can't feel that I'm always chasing profit. It's about giving the students the best education you can give them. And I think we have proven that you can do a small amount of profit as well as having the highest grades in the municipality and the best results. So it's not a problem. It's a company driven by the idea of having the best schools in Sweden.
Jag kan inte säga att jag tycker att det är fel att man ska kunna tjäna pengar på att ha en skola. Det finns ju mycket i det svenska systemet inom sjukvård, inom tandvård, alltså där man med statliga eller kommunala pengar driver en verksamhet åt kommunen eller staten. Vad jag tycker är viktigt, det är ju att man på något sätt, att kvaliteten är så bra så att man inte vinstintresset går ut över den pedagogiska verksamheten.
There has been shown many times that the big companies in Sweden, they have on average a profit margin about 5-6%. And of these 5-6%, more than 70% are used for investing in their own schools. So it's a question of being able to produce more quality.
I've come to believe that actually if by having the level of investment that we have in education that the company bring, can actually produce a first-rate education for young people better than the rest around, I'm very comfortable with that. Okay, we make a profit at the end, but it's a very small profit, and actually if we achieve that outcome, I'm comfortable with that.
It's a policy which goes against the grain in the UK.
One of the things that I think is crucial when we're making the same sorts of reforms here is that we ensure that people are confident that these reforms are driven by a desire to improve education, as it's been improved in Sweden, and not by a desire to achieve any other goal. And that's why we believe that money that is spent on education should stay in education.
Statistics show that there are many different factors which set Sweden apart from the UK. The British population is almost 7 times larger than in Sweden. Less than 1% of students are educated privately, whereas here it is proportionately high. And on average, over 21% more money is spent on each child's education in Sweden per year. So given the scale of these differences, how far is it possible to borrow from foreign education models and expect them to work in the UK?
I think the Swedish culture and the Swedish school system are very special because we have been working with this school voucher and the choice of schools for almost 20 years. So it will take some time, I think, to maybe Britain to adapt to a system that's more of a free system.
I live in England. And I'd like an English education for my children. I don't know what the Swedish education is. I don't know what the Swedish education system, how it works, anything about it. And I don't live in Sweden. My children don't live in Sweden. They won't be growing up in Sweden and probably won't be living in Sweden.
My view on taking foreign models from other countries is very simple. Politicians who have anything to do with education should be banned from visiting foreign countries and bringing back their education ideas into this country. They may work in a different context in Germany or in Sweden or in Japan or in Korea, but that doesn't mean they're going to work in England. We actually have a very good education system here, and I'd like to hear a bit more praise for what we do well, a bit more trumpeting of the good things that happen in this country, which when I go to international conferences, I hear being praised by people from other countries. Perhaps they are in the business of pinching our ideas, not the other way around.
We're not talking about taking something from the further reaches of the Wild West. We're talking about a civilized Northern European country with higher levels of child welfare than our own, a country from whom we can learn a great deal. Of course, you can't identically mimic everything that happens in Sweden here, but I think it's a very sort of blinkered sense of narrow nationalism that would suggest that we can't learn from a country like Sweden or like Finland.
This Swedish model for education is currently only being proposed in small part by the Conservatives, with any independent providers having to operate under the existing Academies programme without any profit incentive. No matter who's in charge of state education, it is likely that elements of the Swedish education model will remain firmly on the agenda in the UK. But the daunting cost of funding the oversupply of places means that full-scale implementation of a Swedish-style supply-side revolution is unlikely for a while to come.